December 28, 2016 marked the end of Archie Sonic's 20-plus year run. An entire world of Sonic the Hedgehog would stop, just like that. For many people, this was the unfortunate end of many of their favorite characters, both new and old. For others, it was about time for the series to ultimately kick the bucket. But regardless if you are a day one fan or a certified hater, there are multiple questions left unanswered. What's gonna happen with Sonic comics? Is the Archie cast gonna get any closure? Why did the comics get cancelled? What did Sonic mean by this? Thankfully, it looked like the future of Sonic comics would get a new home, as only a few months later, Sonic the Hedgehog would be back in comic book form under a new publisher, IDW. The IDW Sonic comics are the latest and supposedly greatest comic series to grace the shelves for over 5 years, bringing Sonic & Co. into a familiar setting with brand new characters to boot. No longer are we tied to decades-old continuity, convoluted stories, and publicly hated figures established by previous comics. We now have a Sonic series that aims to be the fresh breath of air we've all been waiting for, right? Well, the last time we looked at this comic, those hopes and dreams turned out to be nothing more than false promises. But maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe I need to do a proper reevaluation of the series from start to finish to see what really makes this comic tick. The good, the bad, and the unfortunate parts of the series. Just like Sonic said in this comic, we should give everyone a second chance. So ladies and gentlemen, long story short, it's time to strap your seatbelts, because this is gonna be a long one. Let's take a look at IDW Sonic the Hedgehog, the entire series. Issues 1 through 4 gives us the introductory story arc, Fallout, where we get to see what Sonic has been doing all this time after Forces. After saving a nearby militia, Tails arrives to save Sonic in the nick of time. He gives Sonic the rundown that someone might be in control of Eggman's robots ever since his abrupt absence. Sonic decides to speed off, but not before he gives Tails a little pep talk. And that is essentially the formula for the remaining 3 other stories. Sonic goes to a town to stop a badnik and talk to his friends who try to convince him to join the army. He leaves because he's free like the wind. There's a bad guy behind the tall chair, rinse and repeat. Yes, I know that this set of issues introduces newcomers Ruff and Tumble along with Tangle the Lemur, but the book itself does not establish anything significant about these new guys. We do get to see the return of the Archie staff, Ian Flynn back on board with the story, and art by Tracy Yardley, Adam Bryce Thomas, Jennifer Hernandez, and Evan Stanley. Yardley and Thomas both give Sonic & Co. a much more dynamic look to their movement, especially Thomas, who knocked it out of the park with issue 2. Stanley's art does look wonderful with a dash of silly facial expressions here and there. Hernandez's artwork didn't do it for me, as I found her art pretty static and the line art a bit too thick for my liking. Overall, Fallout doesn't set the bar that high for this comic series. It almost feels like attempting to tie itself to Forces wasn't the greatest idea ever. Here's hoping that the next story arc ups the stakes higher than whatever this was. 5 and 6 gives us a short 2-part adventure on the fate of Dr. Eggman. Sonic joins up with the Chaotix this time around, who somehow got Eggman's location. The locals at the village note that something has changed with the famed doctor. He's got amnesia and now is a good guy named Mr. Tinkerer. Sonic isn't fully convinced, even citing that he's still a threat regardless, but the locals want him around as he's been helping out the village. But before anything can be discussed, badniks arrive on the scene. Mr. Tinkerer cowers in fear over the robots, which convinces Sonic that maybe he's truly lost all that evil in him. Sonic and the Chaotix save the day, and it looks like Tinker may have a bit of Eggman inside of him. Pause. Shadow and Rouge arrive on the scene, and thus introduces one of the most controversial aspects of this comic book: the characterization of Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh boy. So Shadow brings up some valid points that just because Eggman has ultimately lost his memory doesn't mean he can't pose a threat, which Sonic initially agreed with. While this argument does bring up a moral dilemma in which we should punish someone for crimes that they have no knowledge of, his argument ultimately falls apart with using not only Shadow as an example, but also the person he's defending. I'm not gonna go too much into detail with this since I literally have a whole video about this specific topic, but manipulating your friend and outright threatening him to believe that your plan is morally correct is just absolutely baffling. And to top it off, this is apparently considered the right thing to do. Man, I sure hope that these actions don't have any sort of consequence whatsoever.
What do you think?
Tinker shows off Eggman Land as a little amusement park, and it looks like there's 2 Eggmans? The fate of Dr. Eggman is a little better than the previous story arc, but it does foreshadow the issues at hand with its protagonist. Seven senses high into the sky with Sonic and Tails, chasing an Eggman airship. After a beautifully illustrated montage of Sonic storming through the place, he meets up with not Eggman, but Neo Metal Sonic, that's the name, don't wear it out, who has taken over for Eggman. He tells Sonic that he's been reprogrammed without any rebellious software, and is doing anything in his power to find Eggman. The two of them fight, and when it looks like Sonic bites the bullet, he hits him with this epic quote. Okay, but for real though, what's up with the usage of song lyrics as actual lines of dialogue? While the heroes celebrate, Neo Metal Sonic has just arrived on Angel Island. I really enjoyed this action-oriented adventure, Sonic fighting against a horde of Metal's forces was a treat, and there was a bit of tension with Neo Metal copying Sonic's data. It does kinda suck that ultimately this is a nothing burger, with Sonic failing to get any data from the airship, and this attempt of fan service is painfully laughable. But the art definitely puts this on a whole nother level. Our first banger of a story right here. Issue 8 stars everyone's favorite hedgehog from the future, Silver, exploring an Eggman base with Sonic, and a newcomer to the mix, Whisper, who's portrayed here kinda like
the strong, silent type
to the cast. Silver kinda does meet ride Whisper here. They all team up and fight a giant E-Series robot. Sonic and Silver check Eggman's search history and find out that Neo Metal Sonic is pulling up to Angel Island, which leads us into the battle for Angel Island. Issue 8 is alright. A noticeable step down from issue 7, especially with the overly nerdy portrayal of Silver here, and the mysterious introduction of Whisper, who feels like all show and a little bit of tell. It leaves a bit to be desired at the end of the day. 9 through 11 finally gives us the big battle with Neo Metal Sonic and the Resistance in the Battle for Angel Island. Knuckles is absolutely tweaking over his island being taken over. The squad decides to pull up on the battle bus and teams to take out Metal. While on the ship, we get a brief moment with everyone before the battle. Shadow's here too for his own reasons, whatever that means. Amy and Blaze question if they should trust Whisper, and everybody else is gambling their life savings away. The battle bus gets downed, Blaze goes super, and Sonic and Knuckles face Super Neo Metal Sonic. Things are getting a bit crazy, as Super Neo Metal proves to be literally unstoppable for the two. Everyone else hijacks another Eggman airship and uses it to take out the remaining badniks. Also, Eggman, Mr. Tinker, gets kidnapped. Shadow finally decides to show up in the comic, and then starts beating Super Neo up. Sonic tries to warn him that Neo Metal Sonic can copy his data, but he hits him with this line out of nowhere. Super Neo evolves and becomes the Master Overlord. Let's wrap things up with issue 11. Sonic, Knuckles, and Shadow get caught by the Master Overlord. Sonic's bright idea is just hitting Metal Sonic with some world-class name-calling, which gives everyone enough time to jump him. Knuckles gets his Master Emerald, Metal Sonic is defeated, and Shadow just heads out. Meanwhile, we get to see what's going on with Mr. Tinker. He's introduced to Dr. Starline, who decides to turn him back into the Eggman we know and love through the Thug Shaker mind control. And that was Battle for Angel Island. All things considered, it's a fun adventure that raises the stakes pretty well, but the way Flynn got to that final stage of Metal Sonic's evolution was really contrived, compromising Shadow's characterization in order to do so. The finale itself felt so abrupt with the crew taking Metal down pretty easily, and it didn't help that Sonic's Your Mama joke moment made the situation feel a bit unserious. It's enjoyable through the build-up, but the climactic finale in question felt like another adventure to be put in Sonic's catalog. Our last issue for this year decides to give us a bit of closure on the previous event. Sonic decides that the best thing to do after that chaotic event is to bring Metal Sonic back online, which has got to be the stupidest thing he's ever done. For some reason he believes that Metal Sonic has the capacity to live his own life now, disregarding the fact that he is now 100% loyal to Eggman. You'd think reprogramming him would have been the safer option, or I don't know, just leave him deactivated? But oh well. Despite Metal's harsh decline to Sonic's offer, Sonic just sees this and decides that he and Tails just have to respect his decision. Would you believe me if I told you that this event kickstarted a worldwide robot virus? No? Well, watch closely. Starline's mind control proves to be utterly useless, Metal comes knocking on Eggman's door, and miraculously, he causes Eggman to regain all of his memories back. He recruits Starline and the Skunks, and even gets all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds as a welcoming gift too. While the heroes all give their goodbyes, Eggman showcases his latest and greatest creation, which we'll soon get a glimpse of in the future. While it was nice to see some sort of issue giving us closure on this event, it was incredibly frustrating seeing how Flynn went with starting the next one. Making characters act stupid for the sake of plot convenience has never worked. Sonic disregarding Tails' warnings to dish out another batch of his morality code makes me wish that this was never introduced into this comic. Outside of that, the rest of the comic was fine. A decent issue at best that harbors a whole lot of questionable baggage from start to finish. 2018 was quite the year for this comic. Mediocrity seemed to be the standard for introducing the world to this new series. It's already given us some poor characterization of some iconic characters, villains and heroes that have yet to make an impact, and comics that seem to share the identity of a cardboard box. Hopefully with the new year on the horizon, IDW Sonic will have a chance to truly spread its wings, with a new event to take the world by storm.